Good morning. My name is Don Weaver. I'm the chairman of the Brevard Veterans Council here in Brevard, Maryland. We're on Merritt Island in the library of the Veterans Memorial Center. The date is July 24th, 2020, and we're very honored today to interview for the Veterans History Project Guy Pace. Guy has an amazing and remarkable service as an American patriot, which will unfold here. He's one of the few people I've ever met who not only served well more than 20 years, but served in 3 different military branches of service. And we'd be delighted as we have a chance to talk to him about those experiences in the Army, in the Air Force, and in the Navy. He retired from the military with credit in all of those services, which included serving in the Korean War.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate you, Guy, coming in today. With me today are Guy's daughter,
Pamela Steele.
I'm sorry, and Guy's daughter Pamela, as well as Joe Davey, who is one of our videographers, and Paul Julian, who's our librarian and also works in the Veterans History Project, and a good friend of the family, Dean Schaff, who's the chairman of the Brevard Veterans Memorial Center. So, Guy, we're so happy to have you here today, and honored that your daughter said this was an opportunity and you agreed to it.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate it. Guy, we like to sort of begin by getting a sense of what are your roots? You came from a family that must have had a patriotic bent because you were pretty young when you first enlisted before the Korean War,
Yeah.
when our country was drawing down its military service.
Yeah.
That was a very few people actually joined the military when you did in
I'm surprised
1947.
they called, said I was a World War II veteran, and I said, how did that happen, But it was for me being in the Korea before, so.
Yeah, because you had enlisted in 47. So tell us a little bit about your family and your background. Where'd you grow up and things like that?
Well, my mother and dad divorced when I was 9 years old, and I lived with my grandmother, and the reason I went in service, I was looking for a place to call home, and so I went in the Army, I had to be signed in. My mother signed me in because I was underage.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got in that, and then bad thing of it, in the Army, I was in a outfit you can never be promoted. See, it was full. So I stayed in it for 6 years, almost 6 years. They deducted me about 30 days when I come back from overseas. If you had a little bit left over, they go ahead and discharge you.
Okay, great.
So that's what they did to me. And then
Can you tell us where in the country you grew up and what was
North Carolina.
in North Carolina?
Yeah, I had a farm family.
Uh-huh.
My grandmother had a farm, and so more or less, I was just looking for a home.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's a terrific story, and that was great. It certainly ended up helping our country.
Yeah.
I can tell you that my dad was a World War II veteran. He was recalled for the Korean War, and you were later on attributed to that kind of situation.
Yeah.
But by joining in 47, you were a trained, experienced soldier when they needed you.
Yeah.
Can you hold up that one picture with you in the Army? I don't know if we need to re-aim, Paul. Is all those pictures going to be in there?
Here's one, and
Yeah, there's a couple of Army shots.
here's another.
Yeah,
Army shot.
I think those will come out pretty well. Paul's going to
Yeah.
move close. And this looks like the one of them is
This one, Mr. Pace's.
This is up in the Smokies.
up in
in
the
the
Smokies
Smokies.
on a lead.
Yeah.
And this one over here, sir, on that.
That was in Korea.
In Korea.
Oh,
In Korea, yeah.
If we can go ahead and ask you to tell us a little bit, I assume that you, having joined the Army in 47, were you married before you went to Korea?
No, I wasn't
were
married
still single?
until I didn't get married until I was 29 years old.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
and
So
an Army and a combat veteran.
yeah.
So you knew how to get married. Anyway, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
We can't wait to see the picture of your wedding later on. But let's keep
Yeah.
this in timeline. So tell us about your deployment. What type of unit, and what was your experience like during the almost 6 months you spent in Korea?
Well, I was in transportation, and they sent me to school for a mechanic.
Uh-huh.
And I was in school, and I got pneumatic fever, and they sent me to the States, flew me from Korea back to the States,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. I stayed in the hospital for 6 months.
When you were back in the States, 6 months of hospitalization?
Well, partially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
from-
but in Korea, do you remember the area of the, because this was early in the war that you went
Yeah.
over there?
I was in 32nd Infantry,
Uh-huh.
7th Division.
7th Infantry Division, that
Yeah.
division is still there, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But you were in the transportation and you were moving troops to
Transportation,
the
yes.
front and everything?
Yeah.
Did you ever cross the DMZ and move as we pushed
I
those
was
people
up.
back?
And stood on the line, and I didn't go across,
Mm-hmm.
but I was up there by myself, and I figured,
Hopefully you have a truck or some kind of a vehicle.
I figured if they catch me, they may take me on. But
Well, that's great. Well, listen, I just personally want to say in front of all of us here and whoever listens to this tape and sees this tape in the future, that we appreciate that service. The Korean War is often called the Forgotten War,
yeah,
and a lot of people just don't understand how important that Korean War was.
yeah,
Had you not sacrificed, along with the 33,000 men and women who died in the Korean War, had we not sacrificed there, how we handled communism would have been very different, I think.
yeah,
And the Korean War was the first of several wars that were brought out because of the Cold War, with the Soviets, the Chinese, and of course the North Koreans.
yeah.
So thank you for that service. So as you finish in Korea, is there any funny stories you can remember about your service in Korea, that or stories that were poignant to you that you remember?
Well, here's one here where they're getting the awards,
Okay.
and
Well, this is actually in the Navy
yeah.
later on. So
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything on the Korean War.
Here's the Air Force,
And
and
there's the Air Force. That's later too.
yeah,
Okay. I think that those are probably coming later.
yeah. Here's
Can you show that
outstanding
picture you showed me?
Yeah.
aviation machinist
Okay.
mate
Here's the
second.
picture.
Okay.
Served
It's
for
not really
Tax
much as a
Department
picture as an
93.
experience we're looking for. That's
Yeah.
okay.
But
So
there's a-
if you had to summarize,
It's a
oh here,
picture on, when he was on the,
here's a
DMZ.
picture of what you're talking about when you were on the DMZ and the wire,
Yeah,
the barbed wire, the pup tents,
wow.
yeah.
this kind of environment that you had to fight on in Korea. Judging from the date that you left Korea when you got sick, the situation was that the Chinese had not yet invaded to push us all the way back.
Yeah,
But it was crucial what you did and your unit did quickly, just before we got kicked off the whole peninsula. Your unit and the other units of the Army, Air Force, and Marines that were there, along with other United Nations personnel. This was the first war that we really had United Nations troops, and you had to push the North Koreans back.
yeah,
And that's how you ended up on the DMZ, isn't it?
yeah.
You fought
They,
back many miles to get there.
They actually pushed us all the way down to Pusan Peninsula. We only had a little finger down on the bottom part of it, and
Yeah.
then we had to fight
Yeah.
going back up.
That's going back up.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that you've got to remember is your station keeper's assignment, your cold weather testing
Yeah,
that you had to do, because Korea, and I know
Yeah.
this from personal experience,
yeah.
gets very, very cold.
Cold
in the
weather
winter months.
testing.
Yeah.
I was in that.
And where did that testing take place?
Actually, let me see.
Was it Canada?
Was it in Canada or Alaska?
No, it was in the United States, but it was
Colorado mountains or something?
somewhere in.
But I think it must have been Alaska or somewhere
Yeah.
because didn't you have experience with polar bears?
Yeah, well, yeah, I did.
Okay. And they weren't in the zoo, right?
No,
These were
they
polar
weren't.
bears, yeah.
Yeah, that was in Alaska where the polar bears.
Yeah. Well, this kind of testing was crucial because we were really hurting that first winter in Korea. This testing enabled us to have much better equipment for the rest of that war, and I was the beneficiary, 15 years later when I was on the DMZ in Korea.
We
That's
about froze to
fantastic.
death that first winter. I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
it was cold, and we
Yeah.
didn't have proper clothing. So,
Yep. Well, you ended up being an important part of
Yeah.
getting that problem fixed for the long haul. Tell us about the Northern Lights when you were up in Alaska.
They scared the devil out of me. I didn't know what was going on.
They didn't have those in North Carolina.
No. No. But anyhow, when the lights went flashing, I was running a boat in the Hudson Bay, and I was down there at night. I slept on the boat by myself, and I thought I'd get out and use the bathroom. I walked out on the fantail of the boat, and I looked up in there, and these crazy lights and stuff. It scared the devil out of me. I tell you, I'd never seen them before,
Yeah.
And it really scared me.
It sounds like they didn't brief you very well about the Aurora Borealis, those crazy lights.
Yeah, it was crazy lights, all
Yeah.
right. Once you see them, they're beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do want to say, and you're probably too modest to say this, but as a result of your service in Korea and getting sick, you already told us about the rheumatic fever,
Yeah.
but that has left you with a lifelong heart issue.
Yeah.
Despite that heart issue, after you were discharged from the Army because of medical reasons, you decided some years later to join another branch of service,
Yeah.
the United States Air Force.
Yeah.
So what happened in between? Is this where this young lady comes into play?
No, actually, I can't remember.
Well, let's ask your daughter.
Yeah.
When did he meet his wife?
Oh, they got married in 1959.
Oh, okay. So this
still, too
yeah.
early.
too early. Okay. So anyway, so you're out. What did you do between? There's 4 years between the leaving the Army with the medical discharge and the Navy. I'm sorry, the Air Force.
I was thinking how am I going to make a living and where am I going to get something to eat,
Yeah.
So
This
then
was
I
1950
figured I
to
better get back
1955.
in service. So
Yeah.
I went back into the Air Force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you left the Army in '53 and you joined the Air Force. Actually, you joined the Air Force a couple of months later.
Yeah.
That's
couple
my
months
mistake.
later,
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to make it where to have continuous service, you
Yeah.
know.
That's
So-
good.
So I went back into the Air Force, and 4 years actually was non-productive because I was in transportation. There again, couldn't
Whoa,
be
whoa.
promoted.
Every service is productive. Sometimes it's not in war, sometimes
Yeah.
but you went because you were skilled in transportation, so the Air Force needed you in South Carolina at Donaldson Air Force Base
Donaldson Air Force Base.
to be a
small town.
transportation
Yeah.
in the 63rd Motor Squadron.
Yeah.
What kind of vehicles did you operate for the Air Force?
Well, tractors, trailers, most of it,
Uh-huh.
and then hydraulic cranes and
Heavy equipment of all
heavy
types.
equipment. Yeah. So,
And you were an airman when you first joined. Well, first of all, you left as a corporal
yeah,
from
and
the Army.
I lost the stripe.
How did that happen?
Well, they pulled the stripe when I went in the Air Force, you see.
Oh,
So I
they
went
made
in
you-
as an E3, and then I made E4, and that's as far as you could go again, see.
There you go.
And that's the reason I keep moving, because I was trying to trying to benefit myself for later on in life.
Sure.
So I just hunting for a place for a home. That's what I said.
At this time, I want to ask you a question. Had you graduated from high school before you enlisted in 47?
No, I never did graduate. I just had continuous service, and they just accepted me as a graduate, you know.
Well, by the time you're 29 years old, by the time you get married, you've served in a war, you've served in 2 branches of service, you've driven millions of dollars worth of vehicles,
Yeah.
you've put your life on the line. Yes, indeed, you don't need to have a high school diploma to do all that.
No, but that's the reason that I was in transportation, and because one thing, I loved it. I loved the equipment. I loved the light cranes, and I liked
Well, we may need your help.
trucks.
We need a crane to put a periscope into our museum. We may need your help, Lee. Listen, there's an event that I just gotta see if you remember. In July of 1954, you were picked to be in a special group to go to an Air Force rodeo.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never heard of an Air Force rodeo.
Yeah,
Tell us
well,
what
that's
happened.
something the general come up with. Let's see. Rodeo winners.
There
it
you
is.
go.
Yeah.
We'll get a quick picture of this, Paul. So these are the vehicles in '54, and Guy was one of the drivers for these vehicles. Which one did you drive? The biggest one?
I was a winner of tractor trailer.
Tractor
If you turn
trailer.
on the back side, you
Yeah,
see
this
my
one.
picture.
There you go.
Turn over on the back side.
And there he gets his medal
Yeah.
for winning the rodeo of tractor trailer driver in the United States Air Force.
Yeah.
That has got to be a record in itself.
Well, it's the only rodeo I ever heard of. And
the
the
military.
general come up with it, you know, and
One of the things that happened from that, I don't know if you remember this, but I'm told that because you did so well at the rodeo, you spent a lot of weeks on the road after that. Do you remember what you did?
oh yeah, I had a tractor trailer. I took exhibit of different things. I hauled a part of a landing gear of a C-120 Air Force, not that 120, but whatever it was back at that time.
C-47?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
And it was
they sent me from this base to that base as
Yeah.
a traveling display is what
That's
it
right.
was.
I think that was you were involved in the time. Remember, the Air Force was still pretty new.
Yeah.
The Air Force didn't start till 1947. So here you are, less than 10 years later, helping the Air Force to get the word out to the public, and you probably end up getting some recruits. They're seeing what you're doing. So that sounds like all over the southeastern United States.
Yeah, I traveled
yeah.
different places,
And by this time, without that high school diploma, you're moving up in ranks. You're an
Yeah.
airman first class
yeah,
in the Air Force, and you're a senior vehicle operator.
senior vehicle.
Now,
yeah.
we're all senior vehicle operators now,
Yeah.
but you were a senior vehicle operator much earlier.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, you went overseas, over to Japan
Uh-huh.
in the Air Force. Tell us about Japan.
Well, there wasn't much to it. I just waiting to get discharged, you know.
Did you get to choose the assignment?
I was getting ready to get out, and then I figured I was walking down the street, and I see this old Navy chief with all them gold stripes and buttons, and you know. And I said, Chief, how about me joining the Navy? I'm an old military man. Yeah, man.
Wait,
come on.
whoa.
Yeah.
The Navy robbed you from the Air Force
Yeah.
while you were active duty Air Force still?
Yeah.
All right.
He said, come on, I'll give you anything you want. And they did. They sent me to school and
Okay.
school and school.
This is fantastic. Hold on to Navy, because
All
the
right.
Navy is the wrap up of the career. That's where you really shoot up.
Yeah.
But tell me about Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa. You were there for 2 years,
Yeah.
from 55 to 57.
In transportation.
Did you learn
again.
any Japanese?
And not able to speak in public, you know. So,
But anyway, but being a North Carolina boy,
Yeah.
right there in Japan for 2 years,
Yeah.
that must have been a pretty significant experience
It was
because
experience.
Japan was just beginning to recover from the war by then.
Yeah.
So you probably saw a lot of destruction from the war.
I did. I sure did. I saw the bombings, and then actually on this side of the creek, you know, as long as the line held, I was on the good side.
Yeah.
And then, so I was just waiting to get out, and then I joined the Navy to make
Okay. Can I ask you one more question about Japan? Did you ever go to Hiroshima or Nagasaki?
No,
Where
never
the
did.
atomic bombs had been
Yeah.
dropped? Okay.
Never did.
Anyway, thank you for that service
Yeah.
in the United States Air Force, service number 2,
Yeah.
and you leave there in 1957. Sure enough, in 1957, you also joined the Navy.
Yeah.
Okay, now the Navy is the capstone of your military career,
Yeah.
and obviously with all that gold brand, all that stuff,
Yeah.
you loved it. Tell us about the Navy and I hold that one picture up there in
That's-
that glass. Is that your first Navy picture?
That's one of them.
I don't see any medals or anything on that Navy picture.
Yeah, this is when I was getting married to her. That's my wife. We've been married 61 years.
61 years.
Yeah,
So she liked the Navy guy better than an Army or an Air Force
I
guy.
guess.
Did you ever tell her that you were also in the Army and Air Force?
I imagine she,
Figured it out?
figured that.
But she married a Navy guy.
Yeah.
So did my mom. Married a Navy guy. That's neat. Pretty handsome guy there, huh?
Yeah, and there's a Navy picture there. later
Okay,
on.
this is when you make Chief. Look at this Chief
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
Yep. Here, you want me to hold it up? Let me hold this baby up. Okay, I'm going to hold it next to you.
Yeah, I look really young there, don't
Yeah, this looks like a slightly retouched type painting.
I?
It's a
been
painting.
painted, yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Painted, yeah.
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 Yeah, in those days. It's a great picture. That's
It
a
is
treasure
great
in the family.
picture, yeah.
That hangs on my wall.
And another one, since we're here, we're going to hold up at your wedding in a couple years after you joined the Navy. She says yes. Where did this wedding take
A little
place?
closer if you would.
That's actually with his sister and his brother
Oh,
in
okay.
North Carolina.
That's my brother and that's my sister. They're both dead now. So,
Uh-huh. And that's you on your
that
wedding
was
day?
me, yeah.
Yeah,
I was second class then, and
okay.
then I was progressing along,
Progressing.
you know.
So you went back to where you left off in the Air Force.
Yeah,
They finally let you go another grade.
yeah.
That is amazing.
Here's
Anyway.
the wedding stuff right here.
Yeah, and here's the
That
wedding.
shows you there that I had 8 years of service at
Yes.
that time, you see.
And you were 29 years old
Yeah,
when you married this lovely bride of 61 years you were married to her.
yeah.
And what was her
61.
name?
Gwenda.
Gwenda. Gwenda.
Yeah.
And she's your mom?
Yes.
Yeah, Gwenda. And when did she pass?
She's still here.
She's still here,
Yeah.
but she couldn't come today.
No.
Okay, well, give her our very best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to see why you
Yeah.
chose such a good and strong woman.
There's their married picture.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your announcement in the paper.
Yeah.
And where were you married? Back in North Carolina?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Asheville.
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 Oh, I love that area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so now we're in the Navy, and you're working your way up on rank, and your first assignment was in Brunswick, Georgia, not too far.
Brunswick, Georgia, yeah.
Yeah.
We were training, we had, I don't know how to put this, but I was in transportation, and then,
You were working on some aircraft engines and stuff
yeah,
too.
engine, they sent me to school, and I worked on engines of airplanes, and I disassembled. I was an instructor at that time, and I disassembled a jet helicopter engine and used it as
yeah.
I used it as an instruction thing. You know, I showed them the younger airmen and all. I showed them this is this and that. You know, and I used it as an instruction aid.
Yeah, well, and this is neat because you're developing skills
Yeah,
at the two different services that helped you to get quickly
yeah,
into becoming not just handling the engines, but become an instructor
yeah.
on
I
the
was
engines.
instructor. Yeah,
Just
for-
a little after time you joined the Navy.
yeah.
Okay, so you were in the Navy. Did you ever have any seaboard experience on an aircraft carrier?
Oh yeah.
Tell us about
Yeah, I
that.
was in deployed for 7 months in on the Ranger.
Uh-huh.
I was in VA 93, I believe it was 92 or 93. I don't remember which one. 92.
92, yeah.
Okay. And then 92.
Okay. And you were at sea, where was that,
7 months,
Atlantic
yeah,
or
in the
Pacific
Far
tour?
East.
In the Far East.
Far East,
So a
7
Pacific
months.
tour
Yeah,
from
The
the,
Westpac, yeah.
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 And you were on the Ranger, you were a machinist, aviation machinist, and a engine mechanic.
Yeah.
And that primary aircraft there was the A4D Skyhawk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing those
A4D,
planes all over the
that's
place.
it.
And
Our
guess-
buddy got
yeah,
shot
well,
down in it. Yeah.
yeah, you know, we have one
No,
of
that's
the.
an A7.
Oh, that's an A7.
A7,
Maybe after
yeah.
you got out, they replaced the A4 by the A7. We have an A7 here at our plaza.
That's a beautiful plane.
Isn't that a nice plane?
Yeah.
Dean and some others got that years ago, and we're trying to keep it up
Uh-huh.
fixed up. So at this point, you decided now you're going to stick around the Navy longer. These other services you left after your enlistment was up, but you re-enlist.
Yeah.
Is this because you're married, or because you like the Navy, or both?
Well, a little of both, because had 2 young kids.
Was this one of them?
Yeah, that's
Oh.
one of them.
So you're a Navy brat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I recognized that feature.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was one, and then my son,
Yeah.
he retired from the Air Force now. He asked me, you know,
Wait a minute, your son is retired from the Air Force?
yeah,
Wow, another patriot.
yeah,
Well,
I
you're a
told
patriot,
him
too.
to get a job. He asked me, he wanted to be a mechanic, car mechanic. I
Uh-huh.
said, son, get a job in service where you're heated in the summer, or heated in the winter, and
Cooled in the summer.
cooling in the summer. And I said, on the weekend, you can be a mechanic all you want to, you know. So he went into satellites and communication,
Wow.
and he retired as a senior petty officer.
Oh, so he was in the Navy as well.
No, he was a senior
Airman or?
senior airman.
Senior airman, okay.
NCO,
Yeah.
NCO.
Yeah, because petty is strictly Navy, I
Yeah.
think. Okay. Okay, great. So he's in Air Force. Did he serve at Patrick Air Force Base on one of his assignments?
Yeah,
McDill.
Oh,
20,
McDill in Tampa.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
22 years.
Yeah.
I know her.
Oh, you want her in here?
They need to go get my mask, and I left it in the car.
Just sit over there. Give her a chair. Give her one of those other chairs. We'll edit this part.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's
Hey,
all right. You
how
just,
you?
just jumped up between the Air Force and the Navy, but we're okay. There you go. Okay, we'll edit this part of the tape and we'll start again. We're back in the Navy, and you're on that Air Force working in the different assignments that you had out of the jet engines,
Yeah,
and then you decide to re-enlist in the Navy after you're married.
yeah.
And tell us about that next wave of things you ended up doing that would end up being down in Georgia.
Yeah. In Georgia, it was a good tour. I enjoyed it, and we was close to home, you know.
Yeah.
The weekend you could run home and so forth. So it turned out real good for us. And then finally went on till I made chief, and they sent me back to sea again, and I was deployed on Enterprise.
Enterprise aircraft carrier.
Yeah, I went on the Enterprise, and I went to sea again for 7 months again, I guess, or something like that. And was over in Tonkin Gulf,
Uh-huh.
and then I had 2 young kids, and I said, I've had enough. I've been in one war, lost. we lost that war.
No, we didn't lose. We fought to a draw.
Yeah. I said, I might as well go on home. My
Yeah.
replacement was there, you know. He got promoted to chief. And so I said, I'm just going to put in for retirement. So what the Navy
And
done.
at that point, you'd passed 20 years of
Yeah.
collective service between all three
Yeah.
branches of the military service.
Navy don't retire you. They hold you for 30 years.
Uh-huh.
And then they let you go. They don't read that far. If they need you, they'll pull you back.
Pull you back.
know, so.
Inactive reserve.
Yeah,
I went through that as
inactive
well.
reserve.
Now, you left out a couple of key things. Guy, I got to tell you.
Okay.
Tell us about the USS Pueblo incident.
Oh, yeah.
What was your
okay.
role there?
We were in Japan, and we were going to the Philippines, and we had khaki clothes, shorts, and here we sail out, and it was going down to the Philippines, and all of a sudden the ship turned around and started the other direction, you know, and the guy asked me, said, hey, Chief, said, we're going the wrong way.
Yeah.
I said, we sure are. So then they announced that Pueblo had been captured, and we were going up and getting ready for strike on North Korea. So they pulled us back and put us by a big old island. I don't know, it was more of a, it just come up out of the water.
Mhm.
You
An
know?
atoll, yeah.
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 And we sat there and determined they was having speaking with the North Koreans, you know. And they finally determined that, okay, well, you can have your men back on the Pueblo, but we'll keep the ship. So that's the way it happened.
That's right.
Yeah, they turned us around then and sent us back to the
So
Philippines.
had the president at that time decided to use force in retaliation for the
Yeah,
wartime action of capturing the Pueblo in international waters,
yeah,
it was not, as the North Koreans claimed, in their territorial waters, but they captured the Pueblo
yeah,
and imprisoned the crew for many weeks,
yeah,
tortured some of them,
yeah,
trying to get information, but still they were finally released. So your power, though,
yeah,
was probably instrumental
yeah.
in making sure that they didn't push it too far and got those troops all, I think they were all returned alive,
Yeah, and you were on the Enterprise?
Enterprise.
On the
Yeah.
Enterprise. that
ready to
time.
attack.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a fantastic story, very, very important. And the other thing that happened on the Enterprise, as you made your decision while you were serving on the Enterprise to leave the Navy? 'Cause
yeah. I was gonna.
after 20 plus years.
I went into Fleet Reserve.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
here we have to get Dean to, because Dean's now in the Fleet Reserve.
Yeah,
Here's the Tennessee branch that he was in. Wait a minute, the Tennessee, isn't that a landlocked state?
yeah.
How the heck
yeah.
they have Fleet Reserve in
They have a-
Tennessee?
Yeah, yeah,
Millington, Tennessee is a training
yeah.
facility.
I joined
Uh,
when I was stationed there in Millington, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I joined the Fleet Reserve.
Well, if COVID ever gets better, you gotta come and join this Fleet Reserve. I
Yeah.
bet they won't charge you any dues.
Yeah.
You'd be able to come and join them. Anyway, that's great.
I belong to Life.
Life member.
Life member
at large,
here.
MAL.
On this outfit right here, a life member.
Fleet Reserve,
Yeah.
Merritt Island,
Yeah,
branch two, what is it?
260.
I got in
263.
my wallet. I got a little thing where I
Good.
joined. You know,
Yeah,
life
great.
member.
that's great.
For
What about the Navy League?
no, I never did get.
You
in
didn't do the Navy League?
Just, but got.
Now, you left the Navy and the Army and the Air Force after 20 years, and you left with more than 20 years of service, and that was 1968. You retired as an E7,
Yeah.
Chief Petty Officer.
Yeah,
Congratulations on all that service from
Well.
all of us.
I think I consider it just a good job. I liked
Yeah.
it. I liked every bit of it. It get a little hairy at times, you know.
Yeah.
People shoot at you.
There you
But
go.
I really enjoyed that. I
Yes.
loved the service.
Do you remember your initiation as a chief?
Yeah, but that was a long time ago, you know.
Because they normally go through,
Aren't
put you
those
through the
top
ringer.
secret?
Yeah.
Aren't those top secret?
Well, they put you through the ringer on those.
Yeah.
Well, listen, your family is going to treasure this interview and this forever.
Well, I
Long ago,
appreciate
when
it.
DVDs are no longer in vogue, they'll be transferred to something else,
Yeah.
holograms or something,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So thank you for doing this. But this was 1968. Decades have gone by. What did you do, and how did the being in the military benefit the rest of your life?
Well,
How did the rest? What did you decide after the military to do with your life?
I got discharged or separated from the
Mhm.
Air Force, and I come down here, and there's a guy related to her.
Uh-huh.
He run something or other, and he said, "Come on down, I'll give you a job." So he did. I come
Was
down.
it a defense contractor or?
Yeah. And he
During the
gave me
space
a job, and I started working, you know. And then I went back into transportation.
Uh-huh.
So I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And,
At Kennedy Space Center.
At Kennedy
at
Space Center.
Kennedy Space Center. I
During the
worked there.
Apollo program.
Yeah. I
During-
worked there 5 different companies.
Yeah.
Every time you get laid off, a new company will pick you up.
There
know?
you go.
So,
Did you ever work for Rockwell?
no, I never did.
That
no.
was my dad worked for Rockwell
Yeah.
after he got out of the Navy.
Yeah.
And he spent with North American and Rockwell for 35 years in the
Uh-huh.
space program.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm sure
put-
you probably met each other at some point.
So what was your job at Kennedy Space Center?
Oh Lord, I had so many
Well,
jobs.
I mean,
Yeah,
Transportation
Mostly
again.
transportation.
it was in
Yeah.
transportation. They're doing something all the
Yeah.
time with vehicles, moving. We call us the movers and the shakers.
There you go.
We never did drop anything, but we set down some a little fast, you know. So,
I love that description.
yeah.
So that went on. Did you end up with a second retirement, or
No,
because you're working for so many companies that was
I
hard
got
to do?
a pension from a union.
Uh-huh.
But it
Transportation.
wasn't
union?
much, it was
Yeah.
just so much for each month,
But the federal government, because of your military retirement,
yeah.
has given you a little bit over the
Yeah.
years.
$250 a month,
Whoa.
yeah.
From the Space Center.
From the
The
Space Center.
union, yeah.
What about the military? There, I don't give
It,
me the
it
numbers.
comes too. Yeah.
Good, so
Yeah.
that helps.
So
And Social
every little
Security?
bit helps, you know.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to meet your wife today, but someday we will,
Yeah.
I hope. And it's just been a delight to talk to you. What else would you describe? I mentioned very briefly, and I want to go back to it. How did the military, those 3 different branches, help you the rest of your life? Obviously, you have some great kids. I haven't investigated her background yet, but I think she's a good kid. And the son sounds like a good guy, Air Force retiree. So how did it really figure? Because you sound like a gentleman who really grabbed on, and you gave more to the service than they gave you. But it did give you something. So how do you feel
I
about
had
that?
my family. I lived for my family.
Yeah.
And we got a beautiful family. None of us are drunks or dope addicts or any, you know, raised. They all went to school and college and so forth.
Did they all do more school than you did?
Oh, yeah, Lord, yeah.
That's
She
the
worked
legacy
for-
of a good dad.
35 years
Yeah.
she worked for
NASA.
NASA, yeah.
So you got an Air Force retiree, a NASA still
Retiree.
working, retired,
Yeah.
and then your side of the family,
I am a pseudo child.
pseudo child.
I
like-
met them when she was still in diapers.
There you go. So
Yeah.
you sort of picked her up and helped her along the way too.
Well, she raised a part of little ones.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
We
fantastic.
met her in North Carolina.
All right.
Yeah.
And you came down to Florida with them?
No, actually, I met them when Pam was visiting her sister in Melbourne. And you were still in diapers. And her and my daughter were still like a year and a half, 2 years old. It was the first time I met them. And then later we reconnected back up in Asheville with her grandparents.
That's fantastic.
So
It's great to
just
have
family.
connections like that. It is family.
Because
Yeah.
we would live with my grandparents when my dad would be out on the ship.
Yes,
So like
yeah.
my first 5 years of life, we
Yeah.
lived with my grandparents. Yeah. He also worked for Belcher Oil, driving the tugboats up and down the
Whoa,
the
you
river
went
here.
from land stuff to sea stuff as well, driving
Yeah.
tugboats.
Yeah,
You left that part
or
of the story out.
working on the engines.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was supposed to be the engineer on it. I had to get up in the morning, crank it up, and
Yeah.
and get us underway, and I worked that about 2 years, I guess.
I think it was longer than that.
So what have you been doing since you decided that's enough work? Have you? What are your hobbies? Are your interests
My
besides
family.
Fleet Reserve and things like that?
My whole life is devoted on my family.
There you go.
I have
Pretty darn good hobby.
a little great grandson,
Great grandson.
beautiful little thing, and
The
he's
family photo's pretty big now, huh?
yeah, he's something else, and she keeps him most of the time. Her and his sister, but we all are a unit,
There you go.
We do
Well-
this and that and all, but
On behalf of all of us at the Veterans Memorial Center, it's been a delight to have a chance to talk with you today and share this story. This, for us, will be an important addition, and we appreciate your approval to keep a copy here for others to see, but you'll be getting your copy within a week or two,
Okay.
and it'll always be here. We will mail it off to the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. It takes about 9 months to get it processed into the system, sadly, because there are over 1.5 million veterans who are there. But this way, the most important one is the one you have, and that you can remember. We will put a little booklet information together for some of the pictures and stuff, and copy that. Dean, as president, as a Navy guy, anything to close with?
No, I'm just curious, when you did the Army, then the Air Force, and then you got into Navy, what did the Navy entice you to re-enlist and everything and stay in the Navy? Were you getting bonuses?
promotion. That's the
Right.
main thing,
Recognition, promotion.
I think hunger drove me into the Navy.
Well,
Because,
as a former Army guy,
yeah.
I'm sorry the Army didn't treat you well enough. We would have enjoyed having you all 20 years in the Army.
And as a Navy guy, I'm glad you're sticking with the Navy.
Stuck with the Navy. There you go.
Yeah.
There's the Army.
There's the Army,
Okay.
and see,
Anyway, I would like to ask all veterans to please stand. You stay
Okay.
seated. On behalf of the United States government and all of us at the Veterans Memorial Center, we salute your server. Ready? Salute. Ready? 2.
Oh, this one.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we'll do some editing on that, and